Welcome to the London Free Press podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Gilbert. Well, the region is watching the trial of Nathaniel Veltman, who's accused of running down and killing the Afzaals family with his truck on June 6th, 2021. The trial began about 2 weeks ago, and the jury has heard some pretty shocking allegations in that short time. So today I'm talking with London Free Press crime reporter Jane Sims about what the court has heard so far and what's to come. Hi, Jane. How are you?
I'm fine, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So I know that you're spending all your days in court. Today happens to be an off day for court. So thank you for spending it with us. But just briefly go over what is the court heard, who we heard from so far, kind of where are we in the trial right now?
Well, I think we're all a little surprised how far we've gotten. This is a case that involves a lot of Crown witnesses and a lot of information. The Crown case is pretty deep, but I'm actually kind of surprised how far we've gotten already. Um, we have seen video, we have seen the police interview, we've seen video of Mr. Veltman in cells. We have seen video at the crime scene. We've had one civilian witness who heard the truck rev from her apartment balcony. We have we've most of the I think the most compelling, yeah, that was compelling evidence, but the most intense evidence I would say has come from Detective Micah Bordeaux, who is the police officer who interviewed Mr. Veltman in the hours after uh, he was arrested at Cherry Hill Mall. If you've gone to our website, you'll see that we have posted a whole bunch of videos. One of the videos that is an exhibit at the trial is the actual arrest of Mr. Veltman at Cherry Hill Mall. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth looking at. I will say this: I am pretty impressed with the kind of video and on scene evidence that has been presented. And I think there's some kudos that needs to go to the London Police forensics team, who's been able to piece together this stuff and has made the Crown's narrative of this case go in fluidly. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking of the video that at Cherry Hill Mall, kind of after the Afzaal family was hit, the car, the black truck, drives into the parking lot, and the only other thing in the parking lot is a cab, and so he drives right over to the cab and tells the cab driver to call 911.
yeah,
And we do hear that 911 call, which in itself is shocking because
yes,
essentially he admits to doing it. Veltman admits to it.
absolutely. That's the one thing about, we heard from that cab driver too, and I'm just, there's been so much information, if I'm kind of
Yeah.
jumping around all over the place, but that cab driver was an excellent witness. He was and I can't imagine what it must have been like for him. He was just sitting there having a coffee, getting ready to go start his night, and have this truck with obvious front end damage to it and a guy wearing an army helmet drive up to him and demand that he call the police. Right?
Mhm.
That was very compelling evidence. But
Right.
yeah, he drives right up. I think what the sense that we're getting, and it certainly comes out in the police interviews, Mr. Veltman wants everybody to know what he did, right? He wants the cab driver to know, he wants the 911 operator to know. As we get farther along into this, we're going to see the efforts that he's made to, I think, particularly from what he said to Detective Bordeaux. I mean, he made a T-shirt. He had a truck. He
Yeah.
and we know from what he said, he'd been thinking about this for several months. And
Mhm.
from March, he did it in June. He told Detective Bordeaux he couldn't say why he did it June 6th. He planned to do it by the end of the summer. He had thought about going on a rampage, but in Mr. Veltman's kind of strange characterization of the whole thing, he said, yeah, but like after I did it, I don't really want to talk about it because it was quote unquote distasteful, was the word he used. It
Right.
wasn't, it was, he talks about having a message. He wants the
Mhm.
message to go out. Um, and it all revolves around white nationalism.
Mhm.
and revenge against Muslims. And it's shocking. It's stunning. Um, it's what I think our community knew, but to hear the words come out of his mouth,
Mhm. I think a lot of
it's
us
no.
expected that he would deny this, or deny it somehow. The interesting thing to me is that he's pled not guilty to these charges. Um and yet we've got all this evidence from police where he admits to doing it. He says things like, "I want the world to know what I did. He essentially insinuates he wants to inspire other people to do the same thing. What a dichotomy from that to pleading not guilty.
Well, I'll talk about that on 2 points, if I can, Rachel.
Yeah.
First of all, um, one of the odd things to me, as someone who's covered a lot of court, was when Mr. Veltman was arraigned in front of the jury panel in Windsor. Um, it was his lawyer, Chris Hicks, who put the pleas in for him. He didn't say not guilty. His lawyer
Mm,
did.
mm.
And I've been struggling to understand why that has happened, and I'm still trying to get an
Is that
explanation.
normal? Is that
No,
normal that the lawyer would say it instead of the accused?
no, it's not, as far as I'm concerned. I
Right,
mean, you expect, if you're going to be arraigned on first degree murder charges, you're going to say not guilty.
right.
But the other thing I'm going to say about it is this: every Canadian is entitled, every Canadian and who is an accused person is entitled to have a trial.
Mhm,
And if you're charged with first degree murder, you are facing the lengthiest sentence that we have in Canadian law. It's a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. If you are facing that kind of penalty, that kind of sentence, you got nothing to lose if you have a trial, right? I mean, who knows how the evidence is going to come out? Who knows what the
sure.
witnesses are going to say and what you're going to look at, or
Yep.
what defense you have if you have a legitimate defense to it.
Mhm,
So, I I don't I don't read much into the fact that we're having a trial. I mean, for him to, usually when someone pleads guilty, there's some sort of incentive to do it.
mhm,
With first degree murder, there is no incentive because you are facing the lengthiest sentence that we have. So
mhm.
I I've had a couple of questions from readers asking me that, and
Sure.
that's the best answer that I can give you. And you know what? I think it's important, really, to have a trial because the facts are coming out, the whole
Mhm,
thing, everything. In the coming days, we will the courts will be releasing the videos of him talking to Micah Bordeaux. And when that happens, we will get them and we will be posting them on our website. And as much as I described them, I don't think it really replaces what people will think once they see those videos. We're still
yeah.
waiting for that exhibit to be released. And I expect, I was hoping maybe this week we will see.
Right.
The
It's
Windsor
different to
Court.
hear his voice say it,
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, and to see how he acts and you know, he's bursting, as far as I'm concerned, to tell Michael Bordeaux everything. And it isn't
mhm,
it he there isn't many buttons that let me rephrase that. Michael Bordeaux does an incredible job interviewing him, but he doesn't have to
mhm.
press many buttons to get him to talk. So,
Now, he did
um,
2 interviews,
as the public will see.
right, sorry. He did 2 interviews.
Hey,
One was at,
yeah,
he was arrested around 8:30 PM. The first interview was
yeah,
at
about
1
eight
AM.
8:45. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
The
mhm,
first interview was at 1
yeah,
AM. The second interview was 10 AM the next morning. And he
yeah.
seemed to almost Veltman seemed to almost backtrack on some things a little bit or soften the blow on some statements he made from 1 AM to 10 AM. Is that right?
They're
Did you
two,
find that?
they're two different Veltmans. Let me
Right.
say, in that first video, I mean, he's been waiting around, and that's not unusual. Let's be clear. I mean, this is a major case.
Mhm.
Um, the London police the investigators have to get their information together before they sit him down in an interview room and talk to him. So if he's arrested, they pretty much have him processed through booking by about quarter after nine, 20 after nine. So he waited, what? He waited 4 hours to
Mhm.
be interviewed. In that time, he had a chance to talk to a lawyer. We saw that, and then he was housed in a dry cell, which is what happens when you have said to the booking officer, yeah, I thought about suicide before, right? Like that is not an unusual thing.
Okay. Yep.
He's taken to the interview room, and there's a 3 hour conversation that he has with Micah Bordeaux, and and make no mistake, Detective Bordeaux has to have his information ready to talk to him,
Sure.
and Veltman is ready to talk. The next morning, after Veltman's had a little bit of sleep, and maybe the adrenaline has worn off a little bit, and
Mm,
maybe it's kind of set in what you've done, and he's a lot more subdued.
sure.
However, I will say this: as much as he doesn't answer as many questions, he still goes on about a bunch of stuff. And at
Mhm.
one point that he makes in the second interview that I found extraordinary is the fact that he made the OK sign with his hands when he was handcuffed at Cherry Hill Mall. He turned
Hmm.
around and pointed that at one of the officers, and he explains to Detective Bordeaux that, well, yeah, that is a white power sign,
Hmm.
right? Although
Mhm.
he sees himself as a white nationalist.
Right.
That's his explanation. Anyway,
He describes himself that way. He, um, he insinuates that he wants to be an inspiration to other people to do a similar kind of thing.
yep.
But he also talked about some people that inspired him to do this, did he?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Who did he mention?
Well, his main inspiration is the man who was responsible for those terrible murders in New Zealand, at
Yes,
the
yeah.
mosque in New Zealand.
Mhm.
Um, and he said that he was his main inspiration. I put the guy's name in my stories, but I'm not going to mention him now.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm finding it hard to actually, in my mind, it's like, you know, use those
Name
names
them.
in my story simply because it goes to spreading that word again. But
Sure.
anyway, that was his
Yep.
main inspiration. He mentions some others too, and he is particularly incensed by what he perceives as an issue in the United Kingdom with Muslim grooming gangs. Now, we haven't gotten into that issue yet of exactly what that is. There's stuff out there, but I'm not going to go into it.
Okay.
He also, before he went out and killed the Afzaal family, he had reviewed a video of someone I believe, in the UK who had taken a vehicle and run into people.
Right.
Um, and he watched that and then went back out.
And he made a mention at one point about why he used a vehicle instead of a gun, didn't he?
Yeah, yes, he did. He wanted to show that you don't need a gun to kill
Mhm.
people. You can
Mhm.
use something else.
Right. And he wanted to
Which,
cause as much damage as possible, I think. He says, "I
yeah,
chose to go as brutal as I did because I believed I needed to send a strong message as I could."
right. And he also said his original plan was to go on a rampage,
Mm.
but after he had
And
hit
what
the
would have that
family.
included? Did he indicate?
Well, he won't say what that was going to include. However, what he did say is that after he did it, he was like, I'm just going to turn myself in now. I don't need to do
Mm,
it anymore.
mm,
I think it had something clicked in his head, but
sure.
his explanation is that the original plan was to go on, and the word he uses is rampage.
Yeah.
So,
Now, Detective Bordeaux was interviewed on the stand this week, and the defense was arguing that Veltman um, perhaps had mental issues, and why did they? And they questioned on why did you continue to interview him? What was that discussion like in court this week?
well, I think what one of the things that I'm getting asked a lot is, what's the defense here? And
Hmm.
so we're slowly seeing the direction that they're going. But first of all, we spent a whole day last week uh, watching 4 hours. Well, I guess it was a day and a half. By the time we got through it, it was a sped up version of the different camera angles at the London Police Service, that would capture every one of Mr. Veltman's movements. Um, that is, first of all, I think that was fascinating to start with, that they could piece together, every single second.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not a real compelling watch. It's a lot of him pacing in a cell and, lying down, getting back up, sitting down, right? So,
Waiting, yeah.
but I think the idea on the part of the defense is they wanted to present what that looked like to the jury.
Okay.
Um, and then to Detective Bordeaux, they're sort of planting seeds, I think, to say that well, he didn't have a pillow or a blanket. Well, yeah, okay. That he was left alone for hours. That he was purposely, that's from the defense, not given any food or anything to drinks to line him up to become real chatty with Detective Bordeaux. Now, for his part, uh, the police officer said, I had no issue with his mental state. I didn't
Mm.
recognize anything, and it wasn't, you know, the insinuation from the defense is, well, you say the police set suspects up by not giving them anything to eat, so they will talk once they go into the interview room, and that's just
Yeah.
not the way it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you have covered so many trials, obviously, pretty horrific ones as well. What's been the most shocking thing that you've heard so far? Even if you've mentioned it already, but I know there are some pretty shocking things that have come out. What's shocked you the most about this so far?
Um, well, I really think that the intensity of his beliefs, and his explanation as to why he really believes he did the right thing
Mm.
is is what is most troubling, to me.
Mhm.
And it's this, dare I say, this distorted view of what the world looks like for Nathaniel Veltman, and um, how he perceives other people and what's going on and what his place is in the world. This
Yeah.
idea that a 20-year-old, dare I say, kid from London, Ontario was going to send a message to Muslim grooming gangs in the UK.
Mhm.
Um, it, it's it's fantastical in a way. Like, it's just not. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But and to know that this kind of expression of hate was simmering for so long in basically a young man.
Yeah.
Um, and there's always that classic thing every time that there's a bad thing happened. It's become rather cliche. Some will say, well, what was he like? And they'll say, well, he was a quiet man, right? Like, we've seen that a million times before,
Mhm.
but we don't know what's happening to someone and how they're thinking and how that thinking is being channeled. I think one of
Mhm.
the things that surprised me the other day um, is the fact that what was pointed out to um, the detective he was brought back to. He said he asked him this in the second police interview. Asked Feldman about his best friend, and who happened to be a Muslim guy.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Uh, Feldman's response was, "Well, he's not really Muslim. He was born in a Muslim family, but he's not really Muslim." And
Oh.
yeah, and
So he
so
yeah.
where there'll be lots of studies about what went on here.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
bottom line we got to find out here is, first of all, under the law, is he guilty? Um, and that's up to the jury, and the jury's going seeing two paths as we go along here. Where,
Okay.
for first degree murder, you have to, the main path in the first degree murder trial is planning and deliberation. If the act is planned and deliberate. But the other thing that's fascinating about this, which is where I think the lessons lie, is the fact is that federal prosecutors are part of this prosecution team, and they want to prove that this was an act of terror.
Mhm.
Um, that is a bit of a that will be interesting for people like me who are kind of a wonk about the law and like to see how this happens. But what they have to do um, is to prove that there was an ideology,
Right.
and that he had an ideology, and that this is what compelled him to do what he did.
Which so
Uh,
far he seems to be quite willing to talk about or
oh, he's been
has.
pretty chatty.
Yeah.
He's been chatty,
Right.
yeah.
Um
But it's, yeah. Sorry, sorry,
sorry,
Rachel.
I the murder charges, of course, if you're guilty, it's life with no parole for 25 years, but to the terrorism charges, added on to that make a difference to the sentence at all?
It doesn't, and that's the kind of that's the thing that I think some people were kind of some legal pundits are going, okay, do we really need this,
Yeah,
right? Do
what's the
we really
point?
need to think? I mean, it's not going to do anything, right? And
Mhm.
even when the jury returns a verdict, if it's guilty, we don't know yet. They
Right.
don't have to say how they reached that decision. If if the 12 jurors who will be deciding this case, there's 14 jurors by the way, but 12 will make the decision.
Mhm.
If they decide he's guilty, maybe 8 of them think it's planning and deliberation, and 4 think it's terrorism. They don't have to say. They don't have to
Mm.
tell the court where that decision will be made is in a finding of fact when he's sentenced by when and if he's sentenced by the judge.
Mhm.
I'm couching this because we're not there yet.
Right,
Uh,
no. This is
so
supposed to be a lengthy trial. We were expecting about 3 months. Um, it will Veltman take the stand at all? Do we know if he will?
we don't know. We don't
Okay.
know. There's a couple things there, and and if I could just pick up one thread on the on the
Sure.
terrorism side of that, like it's the 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 part that I think is that we need to understand is um, we've never seen this argued in front of a first degree murder jury before,
Mhm.
and there is possible precedent setting here regarding what white nationalism is,
Yeah.
if in fact that is
Mm.
proven, right? That it is that those acts and that sends a message out into the community and
Yeah.
to like-minded people. Okay, but I'll go back to the length of the trial. Yeah, this was supposed to be 3 months. Jury was told at the beginning of the trial, not during jury selection, but at the beginning of the trial. Well, basically, good news. We think we can get this done in 8 weeks.
Okay.
The way this evidence is going in, it may be quicker.
Right.
I guess I'm kind of hopeful because it's an awfully long time, but
It is,
we don't
yeah.
know where it's
But we've
going.
gotten a lot so far. I mean, it's truly
Yeah,
shocking
yeah,
within even the first week.
we still have a lot of stuff to go through, and Mr. Veltman's defense team does not have to tell the court until the Crown's case is in whether or not they are going to call evidence. So we don't
Mm.
know yet. We don't know what the plan is.
Okay.
Um, we won't know until that day, right?
So
And they're not.
what are we looking forward to? I don't want to say forward. What are we looking at in the next week, maybe 2 weeks at trial? Do we know?
Well, I'm going to hesitate on saying exactly what who and what and when will be called, but we do know from the opening statement from the Crown that there's some forensic stuff we have to look at. If you'll recall, there were searches. Um, if we will probably I expect we're going to hear from a lot of police officers in the coming
Mhm.
weeks. Um, I am I don't know how many civilians. I'm kind of hoping and wishing that those folks that had to come across that terrible scene won't have to come in. Um,
Yeah.
Not only is this tough as far as reliving what happened, but they are traveling to Windsor. I mean, we are out of town, and that's that adds a particular kind of burden on people.
Mhm.
Um, so, but we'll see. I never want to say what's coming because I don't know either.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely going to be watching your reporting. I know you've got some live reporting happening while you're in court, so we can watch for that pretty much daily, right?
Yeah, we're doing a live blog. If you go to our website every day, you will see that we have teed up for the day. What it'll say what day it is, and there is a blog there. We keep it
Mhm.
up as much as we can. I will say that it's I do try to refresh it every 20 minutes or so, but yeah,
It's a
it's
task with all the information, for
well,
sure.
it's been it's been challenging, and I think every reporter who's there will tell you it's been challenging because it's been a bit of a tidal wave of information. I mean, it isn't like this is not a whodunit, and we have agreed statements of fact from the Crown and the defense that said, yeah, he hit them. It is he did it.
Mm.
He took that truck, he drove north on Hyde Park Road, he turned it around, and he hit that family.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so this is I've had emails. Why are we having a trial or what's going on here? Well, we need to know, and we need to be able to identify what this is.
And get that information out. Yeah.
Right. Because
Okay.
this city needs to know. This city was so affected by
Absolutely.
this event. I can't think in all of these decades that I've been reporting of a single event, violent event that has galvanized the spirit of the city like this did, and this community needs to understand why it happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to take in, and I'm sure there's a lot more, but we'll definitely be watching your reporting at lfpress.com. Thank you, Jane, and good
No
luck in
problem.
court.
Thanks, Rachel. Good to see you.